We have a new mantra for the Angels in 2026. Less strikeouts, more contact.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. It's FANMAIL Friday, and we're discussing what you want to discuss, like contact over strikeouts. A lot of you are really wanting contact over strikeouts. It's why that's the new mantra for 2026. Plus, you want guys that get on base by any means necessary, and you wondered what players should the Angels target in order to make that happen. Before we talk about the Angels, we want to thank our sponsor, FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the FanDuel app today.
Happy Friday to you, and thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is Jon, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother Jon.
We're talking Angels baseball with you every Monday through Friday. There's a lot of news, a lot of happenings around Halo Land, so make sure you're subscribed wherever you listen to podcasts, or even on YouTube. We'd love to have you be part of the conversation. And speaking of being part of the conversation, Mike, it's one of our favorite episodes to do during the week. It's a Fan Mail Friday, so we're going to get it started with a voicemail regarding our thoughts on Albert Pujols and management, and if the Angels can solve their hitting problems.
Hey, Mike and Jon, this is Brett from Arizona. Hello. Just wanted to call and say great week of videos so far. I agree with everything you guys have talked about. Pretty spot on. I do think that hiring Albert would be a good move. And as was mentioned today, yes, it would be a flashy, arty move, but I think you outlined why that's still a good idea. And I agree wholeheartedly. Also, it's funny, we've been saying for years the Angels need to, put the ball in play more, right? More contact, move guys over. And it's funny now that the Yankees have lost, everybody's saying the same thing, less home runs. Ken Rosenthal wrote about it today. John Boy posted it last night. Alex Rodriguez talked it on the broadcast that home runs are great, but they really need to put the ball in play more often. So it's funny how everybody's sort of coming to that conclusion. Less strikeouts, more contact. So it's going to be an interesting off season. Hopefully the Angels make the necessary adjustments that they need to. That's it, guys. Great job as always. Thank you. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk soon. Later.
Brett from Arizona, thank you for your voicemail, my friend. Always great to hear from Brett. Always has some great insight. Mike, we mentioned this on our episode about the Perry Minasian hitting philosophy and what that looked like. But here's the thing: the league has trended more toward power at the expense of strikeouts, and that's a trend that's been happening for the last maybe 6-7 years. But I got a chart here that I whipped up here. Oh, I got to load that in. But the fact is that it's very clear to see where things are trending in terms of, why can't I get this to go? I'm on the wrong thing here. So, anyway. Here we go. Okay, I got a chart here that I'm really excited to share. And
Anticipation, it's building. It's building.
There we go. I had to load a whole bunch of stuff on the StreamYard here. But for those on the audio side, we'll describe it to you. Mike, here's a chart of MLB home runs, strikeouts, on-base percentage, and slugging percentage. And if you notice, from 2014 onward, look at how harsh that graph is. It is a dramatic climb. In fact, from 2014 to 2019, obviously the juiced ball era of baseball was 2019, where the ball was a little tighter, sewn a little tighter, so that when you hit it hard, it went flying further, and then they kind of softened up. But things are trending back down somewhat. But Mike, look at all the home runs, and then look at the trends with the strikeouts there in the blue lines as well, right?
Yeah, a lot of strikeouts. And what's interesting about what Brett said, and it's funny because our everydayers have been saying this as well. Maybe we're the trendsetters here, Jon, because we're seeing what our fans are seeing, and we're seeing what maybe baseball is seeing. And that's, hey, home runs are sexy and cool, but it comes a lot along with some things that are not, like strikeouts and a lot of swinging and a lot of missing. I noticed just last night watching some of the playoff games, the guys who didn't have a lot of power had high batting averages, and you don't see high batting averages anymore. And to be able to have that in the lineup with the Angels is actually a benefit. And we've talked ad nauseum about Nolan Shawnuel, but even somebody like a Bryce Teodosio, who's a threat to bunt and who's a threat to move the runners over, those are the type of bats that you need in a lineup when you have a lot of power. If you have a lot of power, everybody's doing the same thing. I think you said on this show earlier this summer, it's just the same player 1 through 9.
Yeah.
And so
it's 9 Mike Trouts, right? It's 9 Taylor Wards. Yeah.
So why throw them anything different? Why would you want to approach them any other way? It makes sense why the Angels either had a really great game or had a really terrible game, because it's the same hitter all the way through. And we're seeing that across the board in baseball. Now, as we've talked about on this show, the Angels seem to always be bringing up the bottom of the trend, right? They're following the trend. They're just not doing it really, really well. When it was skinny jeans, the Angels had skinny shorts. When it was baggy jeans, the Angels had baggy shorts, right? Like they were always just a bit behind the trend, and it feels like they're kind of in that mode right now. So for them this offseason, perhaps they should try to prioritize more contact rather than a lot of power, because they've got the power and they need to have more hitters in this lineup to make contact, move runners over, sacrifice flies, because you can see that actually helps teams win and continue to win and possibly win championships.
Yeah, I pulled the best teams in a bunch of categories who actually made the playoffs here, Mike. So I got a list here for you. 6 playoff teams were the top 10 in MLB in batting average. It was the Blue Jays at the top, Phillies, Brewers, Red Sox, Dodgers, and Padres. 8 playoff teams were the top 10 in on-base percentage. Blue Jays, Brewers, Yankees, Phillies, Dodgers, Red Sox, Padres, and Cubs. 6 playoff teams, top 10 in home runs. Yankees, Dodgers, Mariners, Cubs, Phillies, and Tigers. 4 playoff teams in the top 10 in fewest strikeouts. Blue Jays, Padres, Brewers, and Cubs. Then, let me tell you the weighted runs created plus. Remember, 100 is league average. Playoff teams in the top 10 in weighted runs created plus. Yankees with 119. Dodgers 113. Mariners 113. Blue Jays 112. That's the top 4 in the league, by the way. And then the Cubs, Phillies, and Milwaukee. So the conclusion here, Mike, I think is the power didn't help them.
No,
because they struck out the most in Major League Baseball. They walked the least. In fact, they were bottom 10 of the league in terms of walk rate. And even with all the home runs, their slugging percentage was still 17th in the league. So no matter what the power says, they still weren't slugging as much as other teams that were not hitting as many home runs. Most of all, their weighted runs created plus was 92. That's 8% worse than league average. Good for 26th in Major League Baseball.
Yeah. And so I don't have the numbers in front of me, but we had an everydayer that asked about, solo home runs and runners that were on when we hit home runs. John, this is why you have a lot of solo home runs. This is why the Angels hit a lot of home runs, but they had a lot of solo home runs, because you have guys striking out and not getting on base. You have guys not drawing walks. You have guys not making contact. And so you're going to get a lot of solo home runs. And it's great on the stat line after the season is over, right? Back of the baseball card is going to look fantastic. Wow, 30 home runs and 100 plus RBIs. That's fantastic. But when did it come? When did it happen? When did it take place? And for the Angels, it was always either when they were really up or when they were really down. Sure, there were anomalies where they hit home runs to take the lead or hit home runs to add to their lead. But truth is, they didn't have anybody on base. And so they hit a lot of solo home runs, and those runs are not beneficial to a team. Yeah, every run matters, but solo home runs can actually ruin a rally for you, because you got runners on, you're making the pitcher have to adjust. He's now not going from the windup, he's throwing from the stretch. The Angels didn't make anything chaotic on the base paths with their hitting and with their running, as Bo Porter said that they would. And so that's why these numbers are very telling, and it makes sense why the Angels have had another 90-loss season and didn't make the playoffs, because they're not doing what good baseball teams do.
Yeah, you can't take Bryce Teodosio and make him end the at-bat when you need to end the at-bat. You swing for the fences, hit it hard. Don't make him that. And look, I understand he's tall. If he added a little bit more muscle, maybe he is that kind of guy, but don't make him that. Don't force him into that box, right? I think that's an important key here. You need Teodosio to make contact.
Yeah.
And the reason why he hasn't made as much contact as he could be is because he's trying to swing hard at everything. And I just don't think that's the solution. So let's go back to Brett's thought about the Angels making the necessary adjustments. Mike, what are the necessary adjustments for the Angels?
The first is that they need to have a balance to the roster. Angels clearly need more contact. They clearly need to walk more. They clearly need plate discipline guys. And we're not just talking about guys that are getting to a 3-2 count. We're talking about guys that are working the count. And we're not talking about Mike Trout, who seemed to be afraid to swing as the season winded down, right? Or Taylor Ward watching pitches. We're talking about guys who know the strike zone and know it well. So there needs to be a balancing of the roster. They also need current players who are going to adjust. I don't think it's too late for Logan O'Hoppe and Christian Moore and even Joe Adell, who had a great year. I don't think it's too late to adjust. I think they have shown to want to adjust. I just think you need to get them good coaching to be able to get them back to where they were last year. Christian Moore, obviously, this was his first real year. So I think adjusting the current players needs to change. I would take a Joe Adell 28 home run season with a higher batting average and the playoffs than a Joe Adell 30-plus home run season with a low batting average and no playoffs. And so I think that they need to adjust the swing. Go back to use the whole field, Joe. Use the whole field, Logan. That would be an appropriate approach. And then they need to emphasize contact through coaching these guys to crush the ball. It did lead to career highs in home runs for Joe Adell and Taylor Ward, but it still didn't help the team with a winning record, did it?
Yeah, no. And that's the other thing, Mike, is through the coaching and getting some of these guys to maybe change their approach. Johnny Washington was doing the job that was asked of him.
Yeah.
And even though we disagree with it wholeheartedly, and that's what was frustrating about this season, the philosophy of the organization is very clear. We went over that a couple days ago, where the trends show that they're chasing power, they're chasing slug, they're not trying to make contact. Batting average is down, right? So all of that to say that you need to get some coaches in here that are going to teach the right things. I'm confident that if they get Albert Pujols and even Torii Hunter, I'd still love to see Torii Hunter be manager. But either way they go, you got to get a good coaching staff in here that's going to preach something different than what's been preached the last 5 years, no matter the hitting coach, and also different from what the front office has been preaching as well. Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Coming up, when Artie Moreno signed guys like Vladdy Sr. and Josh Hamilton and Albert Pujols, was that in pursuit of swinging for the fences? We're going to get into that conversation here on much, much more on FanMail Friday. We'll get into that coming right up.
Football season is here, and FanDuel has an offer that you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Again, put $5 down. If it hits, you're going to unlock $300 you can use across the app just on FanDuel. It's their gift to you for being a winner. And I love FanDuel because you can bet in so many different ways. You can build parlays, you can try player props, you can even follow the live lines while games are unfolding. That's a lot of fun. Whether you're a casual fan or you love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So don't wait any longer. Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started.
This is the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Check us out wherever you listen to podcasts. Whether you're watching or listening, come on over to today's show on YouTube. Get in the comments section because we'd love to hear from you there and hear some of your responses to the conversation today. And hit us up on social media, at Locked On Angels, at Super Halo Bros. You can find us wherever you social your medias. Mike, we've got two questions here that kind of fit the same mold. So we're going to hear from Daniel first, and then we'll hear from Nick right after that. Here we go.
Daniel Sprinson calling from Somerville, Massachusetts. Angel fan since Reggie Jackson came over in '82. And I'm in crisis, and I need your help, Super Halo Bros. How do I feel like small ball with the Angels, Mike Scioscia days, that's what we need to get back to. There's no vision going on. I'm reminded of Pujols coming to the Angels and that other guy from the Rangers, when they just started to try to hit home runs. And then in 2014, I had to watch the Angels lose to the Royals, who were playing our brand of baseball. And I don't understand how Artie Moreno can think as a business owner that what he did at the trade deadline is going to increase the fan base. the lack of vision. Like, if he sold off more players and got some draft picks, I would be all excited about this team. And so I need help. The only solution I think we have to do is start a GoFundMe page, Super Halo Bros, new ownership of the Angels. So I got $10 in my pocket. I'm ready to put down on that one. But barring that, I need some help. I'm in crisis, and I need your wisdom. Thank you. Long-time listener. Love you guys.
Daniel
great.
from Massachusetts. How is it jarring to you to hear a guy with a Massachusetts Bostonish accent talk about the Angels, Mike?
I love that he's in Massachusetts and he still roots for the Angels. And I love that he's asking us for help. Listen, this team in the offseason, depending on what happens with some of the off the field stuff, maybe that $10 that he puts for the GoFundMe might actually buy the team, because the team's going to fall apart, right? John, you said you had one more thing, and it was from somebody on Instagram.
Yeah, Nick Vlahakis, an everydayer. He messaged us on Instagram in response to the article I posted on our Substack about Perry Manassian's hitting philosophy for the organization. Nick said, I said the other day we should have known the direction the Angels were going with Artie Moreno's first big signing, Vladimir Guerrero Sr. Angels under Mike Scioscia were small ball, pass the baton type of hitters, and when Artie took over, all he cared about was home runs and big moments he could monetize. It's why I believe Scioscia's coaching started to turn, because his style clashed with Moreno's vision. Forget fundamentals. We need Sports Center highlights because it's marketable. He then followed by getting guys like Hamilton, Pujols, Rendon, because they fit that mold. Now we're stuck with the consequences of those decisions, and the downhill slide started all the way back in 2003. 2014 was the last good year because they had the remnants of Scioscia small ball mentality mindset. Once those final bits were gone, we were left with this. Mike, do you think there's something to the case to be made about, the Angels chasing power, highlights, and home runs with signings like Pujols and Hamilton and even Vlad Sr.? Because I think it's a bit more nuanced than that. What about you?
Yeah, I agree. And to Nick and Daniel's thoughts, I want to answer that question, but I also want to be fair. The Angels had the top batting average in the league the first year that Albert was here. They hit 274.
Yeah.
Now, to Nick's point, it might be because Scioscia, right? Scioscia was a really great manager. They had the fifth best. They were fifth best in 2013, sixth best in 2014 in batting average, and third best in weighted runs created plus with 110. It really fell off from 2015 onward. And I think that's where Nick's point comes in, where the bits that were from the previous seasons, they really started to not show up anymore. And we were actually living in the results of the drafts that Artie Moreno's people were in charge of. Yeah. And we're really seeing the impact of that. And it started really in 2015.
Yeah. And so when it comes to, a big signing like Vlad Sr. back in 04, before 04, to me, that was an addition to what they already had going on. I don't think there was anything wrong with getting, the biggest free agent out there, and also adding him to this roster, because they needed a Vladdy Sr. on that team, right? And yeah.
But why did it work, John? It worked because they had hitters around him. It was a balanced roster. Power. It was very balanced, and that's the thing that the Angels need to pursue. Now, to Daniel's question and how do they get back to that? I think right now the solution is they get somebody that's trusted, to John's point and what he said on this show the last couple of weeks, somebody that's trusted by Artie Moreno, like a Torii Hunter or an Albert Pujols, because I think these guys are going to bring a different brand of baseball. I think, John, that Torii Hunter is going to bring the most unique brand, even though we've been kind of on the Pujols train, and perhaps he would be a really good manager and we would be in support of that. But there were two moments that really kind of indicated that for me. One, when he talked about Bryce Teodosio and his defense when he was in Texas and he was on the bench and he was watching the team. But then when they had that meltdown defensively close to the end of the year and the camera caught Torii Hunter, the Minnesota Twins camera caught Torii Hunter shaking his head and just going awful. And I think that to me tells me that Torii is going to prioritize things that the Angels don't necessarily prioritize. And so I think he could bring a different brand. But the thing that's going to have to happen, though, is they're going to have players to meet the moment. Now, I would argue that they have some of the young players to meet the moment, and they're still able to learn to meet the moment.
Like
I don't
moldable.
I don't think Logan O'Hoppe is stuck being one way. I think Logan O'Hoppe is going to do whatever is necessary. Same thing with Neto and Shonowell, and I would even say like Joe Adell. Mike Trout's going to be Mike Trout. But I think that they have players that are moldable, and so that's good news. But it's not gonna be enough, right?
Yeah.
They're gonna have to get other players to come in and help fill out this roster in a way that follows the philosophy of the manager. And so, to Daniel's question, I think an Albert or a Torii could be the start of that. I just don't think that we need to get our hopes really high for 2026 because they're still going to have to field a roster, and that roster may not match the philosophy and the strategy of the manager that they hire.
And I also think, going back to Nick's point about the kinds of guys that they chased in free agency, I think that the Pujols move, I think, was a great move at the time, right? Yeah. You know, the hottest free agent coming off, you know, the World Series, multiple-time MVP. Like, you couldn't go wrong there. Obviously, and I think the rest of the league learned this too, signing guys at that age to that long of a contract, big risk. But it wasn't the first and it wasn't the last either.
Yeah.
The other thing is, though, I think that it's nuanced because, that team could definitely use a Pujols on the team. And what failed them that year was their starting pitching, even though they had, you know, CJ Wilson and Jared Weaver and Dan Herron, and then they got Zach Greinke later. That didn't really work out too great, but they had a better record than the Tigers, and the Tigers got to go to the playoffs and not the Angels because of the rules back then. So what I'm getting at here is they definitely could have used a Pujols on that team because they were still doing everything right. They were balanced, like you said. But then going after Josh Hamilton, that's a flashy move that, you know, was a highlight reel thing in the vein of what Nick's talking about. Should have brought back Torii, or you should have used that Hamilton money for Zach Greinke, right, to bring him back. And so that's where I think the nuance lies. There are moments like with Vladdy Sr. and Albert Pujols where it's like, that's a great move to go with this roster. And then there's moments of like Hamilton where, and I'll say this for anybody who doubts, you know, StatCast, if they had StatCast back then, you would have seen the fall off of Josh Hamilton before they signed him and went, ooh, that doesn't look good. That's not great. And so that to me is the flashy move that didn't work out because that was another Artie signing that wasn't a great idea. If you really wanted to keep things going well, you would have brought back Torii at a much cheaper price and maybe even had some money left over for Greinke. And we all know what Greinke did after the Angels, you know, between the Dodgers and the Diamondbacks and the Astros, right? So all of that to say, I think it's a little more nuanced than just, hey, Artie started signing these big bopper free agents and he was just trying to get on highlight reels. No, I think that there was a point where a Vladdy made sense and a Pujols made sense, right? And if Hamilton wasn't on the decline, like that would have made sense too, to go with the kinds of teams they were running out there. The problem, Mike, and this goes back to the first segment, is balance among the roster. You can't have 9 Mike Trouts. Not everybody can be Mike Trout. You can't have 9 Taylor Wards. You don't want everybody to be Taylor Ward, right? No. So and so that's the issue here. The Angels have to be able to find that balance, and they need to get a manager who is going to help them find that and leave Perry Minasian perhaps out of the conversation as well.
Guys, you probably heard of Viagra and Cialis, and maybe you've even tried them, but if you're looking for something to go beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rougiette Go Long. This is not just another ED pill. It's a total game changer for confidence. Go Long combines 2 doctor-trusted medications in one dual-action formula. The effects can last up to 36 hours, confidence all day, all night, and even into the next day. The process is simple. You connect with a board-certified doctor. It's 100% online, and if prescribed, your treatment it ships to you discreetly to your front door. So if you're ready to level up your confidence in the bedroom, head to Rougiette.com and use our promo code LOCKEDONMLB for 15% off your first order. That's RUGIET.com with the promo code LOCKEDONMLB.
One more voicemail here on a Fan Mail Friday. We appreciate everybody who's contributed to the conversation. Let's hear from an everydayer we haven't heard from in a while. It's Brandon out in Virginia.
Hey guys, it's Brandon from Virginia. I got a couple quick questions for you guys. I was wondering if you guys think it'd be a good idea if we go after Max Muncy, the Dodgers, well, more than likely the Dodgers probably get that left-handed third baseman from Japan. If they get him and they let go of Muncy, do you think it would be a good idea for us to get Max Muncy or stick with Moncada or just go a different route and try to find somebody else? And I'm all on board for, and the second one is I'm all on board for Albert Pujols being a manager, especially if he brings Yadier Molina. I don't think anybody else would be a better fit than to have one of the best hitters of all time help out our hitting struggles that we've had this year, and arguably one of the best catchers, at least of my lifetime, help out Logan O'Hoppe, and just bringing back that old school baseball that works well for this team. And I was wondering if Artie is going to see it the same way that we see it, as in it helping out the team and making the team better, or is he just going to see, putting more butts in seats and dollar signs as like, oh, we have Albert Pujols and Yadier Molina in the Angels dugout, come see us. Wonder what you guys think. Thanks, guys.
Brandon, thanks for your voicemail, my friend. Excellent questions here regarding Max Muncy and, how Artie would view having a Pujols and a Yadi on this staff. And we'll talk about that in a second. Mike, let me address the Max Muncy thing. He's 35. Mm-hmm. He'll be 36 in August of next year. He's got a $10 million team option. So the Dodgers will have to make a decision on whether they want to keep him or let him walk. $10 million for what Max Muncy has done.
Right. Even if he's playing the bench, like he can play first, he can play second, he can play third. They're probably going to pick up that option, but go ahead.
But even if they get Murakami, you're probably right. They can pick up that option. However, he's had a bit of an injury history the last 2 years, 100 games this year, 73 last year. He's not a batting average guy, but he does walk a ton. In fact, he walks twice as much as the league average. And then also the last 3 years, he's had a 470 slug or better. And remember, I always say a 500 slug is how you should feel about a 300 batting average. And that's what Muncy's been able to do. I don't know that the Angels go this direction. I also don't know that the Dodgers let him go, considering how valuable he's been. And even if he's, going to be up there in age, he's still been productive. It's not a move I would want to make, though, with the Angels, because it's the exact kind of move that they would make, going, you know what? Yeah, he'll be 35 going on 36. That's okay. But then it'll all fall apart with the Angels. But if he stays with the Dodgers, he's going to, have a near MVP season. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, if he puts on the Angels uniform, he's going to fall apart. If he stays with the Dodgers, he's going to be just fine, because that's the way things go for the Angels.
Well, and here's why it would fall apart for the Angels. It would fall apart for the Angels because they don't have roster depth. He'd have to play every day, and he hasn't been able to play every day. If he stays with the Dodgers, he doesn't have to play every day. Yeah. If they get Murakami, they're going to be fine. But even if they don't get Murakami, he still doesn't have to play every day, and they can move him around, and they're not relying on him to be the guy. He is their Taylor Ward, John. Yeah. And Taylor Ward on any other team that's a really good team is just one of the guys. But on the Angels, he's the guy. If Max Muncy comes to the Angels, he's going to have to be the guy or one of the guys, right? Mm-hmm. And that's not who he is. Plus, he's going to be 36. So I love the guy. I think he's a great player. Obviously, he's a winner, and he is clutch. And those are the things that we haven't had on the Angels. 35, 36, though, I just don't know if he's coming over. And then a $10 million option, whether they sign somebody or not, like that's a cheap deal for somebody like a Max Muncy.
Yeah, considering probably in arbitration, Taylor Ward is going to make more than that this next season. Mike, this is the second part of Brandon's question. If Albert and Yadi ended up in the dugout as, let's say, manager and bench coach, or Yadier Molina is doing some other situation, right? Would Artie view it as the money grab, or would he view it as a way to help the team? In response to Brandon's question, how do you think that Artie would look at this?
I don't know if I would say that it would be a money grab. I do think Artie feels like in his world, in his head, he's trying to help this team. I don't think that he is foolish enough to think that this is going to put butts in seats if you have a manager like Albert Pujols and a Yadier Molina. I don't think that the manager makes a big difference, and I don't think that he thinks that as well. But what I do think this is him trying to do what he thinks is best to help this team actually win. Bringing in a manager and somebody he trusts, somebody he respects, has a long history with, I think he feels like that would be the best move. The problem, the tension, and this is where we're going to have to see what happens, is Artie might go, all right, we've got Albert. He's going to manage this team. He won a championship in the Dominican Leagues. This is going to be fantastic. We got Yadier Molina. He's going to be great as a bench coach. Okay, let's go.
Right.
2026 season, right? And that's not going to work. That's not going to work at all. We all know that. I just wonder if Artie knows that, but I would say I don't think it's a money grab. I do think he feels like this is the best move to help this team get better. It's just not the only move, and that's been Artie's history.
Yeah.
One move, and that's it. He can't do one move. It's got to be multiple moves. It's got to be 5 or 6 moves.
Yeah.
Manager and coaches, and it's also got to be players and depth, and it's got to be pitchers, and right? It's got to be multiple moves. Will he do that? He's shown us that he's unwilling to do that. So again, I don't hold out hope, and I'm not holding my breath because I just don't know if he sees it the way that everybody else sees it.
The only thing I would push back on is I don't know that if he got Pujols and, let's say Molina's in there as a bonus, right? That feels like the promised land in my eyes as a Halo fan. I don't know that those two would put up with not making moves.
Yeah.
Now, at the end of the day, it is our decision, but, I think that they wouldn't put up with that. And then going back to Brandon's point about, if this is for butts in the seats and, Artie's like, hey, look who we got in the dugout. It's your favorite Angel from the last decade. And, and Yadier Molina, who he would refer to him as, Benji and Jose's brother, like discrediting everything Yadi's done in his career. But even if that was the case, you said it the other day, a broken clock is right twice a day.
Mm-hmm.
And, a Bob Ross happy accident is certainly possible because, Artie might think that this is a great way to get fans in the seats, but also those would be pretty good moves. And whether it is a Torii Hunter or an Albert Pujols or Yadier Molina, like it's still a good move. And so again, he might be making a purely Artie Moreno business decision so that he can, pad his bottom line and all that stuff. But also it would be a good move. And I think that's the tension that's there. And so at the end of the day, even if Artie views it one way or the other, whether it helps the team or it's just to get fans in seats, you know what? I think it's going to work out either way. Now it's just a matter of interviewing the guy and announcing that they signed him, or are we going to end up with somebody that, we've been talking about Pujols and Hunter for the last few weeks, and then it's going to be, like you said the other day, Bob Sacamano. And so let's get on this, Angels. I think it's about time that we get these managerial interviews done and pick out who's going to lead this team in 2026.
Thanks for making this FanDuel edition, or FanMail edition of Locked On
FanDuel
Angels
too?
your first listen of the day. Now for your next listen, check out Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night until the World Series champion is crowned. And you can find Game Night on the Locked On MLB YouTube channel or wherever you get your podcasts.
We gotta get FanDuel to sponsor FanMail Friday specifically. That's the way
do it.
I think we should go. All right. Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Of course, you can find us at Locked On Angels, at Super Halo Bros on social media. Come on over to YouTube, get in the conversation. We want to hear from you as well. Mike, when we come back on Monday, what do we got on deck?
Well, if there's no breaking news, and with this team,
Right.
you just don't know. It might be a manager on Monday, maybe this weekend. We're just not sure. Saturday seems to be the day that Perry likes to talk. So we'll see what happens this weekend. But if nothing changes, at least this weekend, then we have the roster report cards, and we're starting that on Monday on Locked On Angels.
Yeah, so if you haven't got into those roster report cards yet, there's still time before Monday. So submit your grades. The episode description has the link where to go, and you can fill out the Google survey and grade each member of the roster. All right, until Monday, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here with us, everybody, and we'll see you back here on Monday.
Dang, Arizona, Virginia, Massachusetts, we're
I
taking over.
know.
We're taking over.
That's right.